Soldiers, they're all the same, right? They eat, sleep and fight. Maybe not the Roman soldiers. Welcome to my channel. Today, we will accompany a Roman soldier for one day during his service in the Legio XX Valeria. Victrix. Alright, it's time to get up. The soldiers of the Roman army didn't have an alarm clock. But they did have their centurion. At the crack of dawn, the officers would wake up their men, starting with the junior soldiers and working their way up. The senior soldiers were allowed to sleep in a bit more. But everyone had to be ready by the third hour, which is around 9 a.m. The soldiers would roll up their straw pallets and stack them neatly beside their beds. After all, order and discipline were of the utmost importance in the Roman army. Once the beds were made, the soldiers would take a quick bathroom break in the latrines. Next, it was time for breakfast. The soldiers would gather in the mess hall where a variety of foodstuffs would be laid out on tables. There would usually be bread, cheese, dried fruit and nuts, as well as wine. Officers got better food, and sometimes even prostitutes. After breakfast, it was time to get down to business. Most of the soldiers' days were spent training. This was especially true in the early years of the empire when Rome was expanding its borders and new recruits were being added to the army. Almost every type of soldier had to be proficient into weapons, a sword, and a spear. Sword fighting was popular among the soldiers and was often done in pairs with each man trying to be the first to land a killing blow on his opponent. Spear fighting was also popular, but it was generally considered to be less exciting than sword fighting. Other military exercises included javelin throwing, which was used to tire out opponents before the infantry charged in and finished them off, and archery, which was used mainly by auxiliary troops. The cavalry practiced riding, and sometimes they would practice charging into battle when they weren't practicing with weapons. The soldiers were learning how to build siege engines or practicing marching in formation. Marching was one of the most important skills a soldier could learn. If the army was to function effectively, then it needed to be able to move from one place to another without falling into enemy ambushes or being separated into small, disorganized groups. Much of the training was done while the soldiers wore their armor, so if they were lucky, they might get a break from the heat of the midday sun. But the training didn't stop there. Soldiers also had to stay sharp mentally. They spent time studying maps and learning the terrain of their current camp. In addition, officers would hold meetings with their men to go over battle plans and other important information. To top it all off, the soldiers also had to keep themselves physically fit. This wasn't just for the sake of their own health, but because it was believed that if a soldier was in good physical condition, then he was more likely to be brave in battle. So after training, the soldiers might spend some time running or wrestling. If they were feeling particularly ambitious, they might even try to run up and down the side of a hill fully armed. Finally, at the end of a long day, the soldiers could relax with some entertainment. There might be music, dancing or poetry readings. Sometimes the soldiers would put on plays or mock battles. On rare occasions, there might even be a chariot race. And when the night was dark and the moon shone bright, the soldiers might tell scary stories around the campfire. Then it would be time to go to bed, and the whole thing would start again tomorrow. As you can see, being a Roman soldier was no easy task. They had to be strong, brave and disciplined. But they also had to be smart and resourceful. If a soldier was able to rise through the ranks and become an officer, he would have to be even smarter and more capable. Being a Roman soldier was a job that required a great deal of dedication, but the rewards were great. Not only were the soldiers paid for their service, but they also had the opportunity to travel all over the empire. They saw firsthand the wonders of Roman engineering and culture. They also got to meet people from all over the empire. If they were lucky, they might even get to see the emperor himself. Being a Roman soldier was a tough job, but it was also a noble one. The soldiers were the ones who defended Rome from its enemies. They were the ones who kept the roads safe for merchants and travelers. They were the ones who built Rome's great buildings and monuments. Without the soldiers, Rome would not have been able to become the greatest city in the world. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more.